Next to the 5 vowels then, we talked about the A, E, I, O, U of the Wing Chun language, your Bong, Tam, Pak Sao, Jum, Gang Sao. We're going to talk about Bong Sao. Bong Sao is an odd technique. It's very controversial. A lot of people have an opinion on it. I can only teach you or share with you what I was taught in Hong Kong. Bong Sao is a reaction. It's not a block. It's almost like a half technique. It's a pass-through point. When a punch comes in, I want to find that technique to be able to apply something. I can't, in the heat of a moment, grab it out of fresh air. That's not possible. So what I need to do is I need to find in order to then pass into a point of safety. So that Bong Sao is not a block. It's not a stopping technique, and it's certainly not tense. It finds so that you can then pass through. So Bong Sao, Bong Sao's here. Okay? It has a great level of flexibility. In Chun Kuen, we do the die Bong Sao and we do the low Bong Sao. It's got a little bit more force, it's got a little bit more driven energy because you can't fold it like you could a high Bong Sao because you will almost pop your shoulder out of socket. From the mid through to, if necessary, very high. Again, a lot of debate as to whether the elbow should be higher than the shoulder, should be parallel, should be lower. To be fair, it comes down to use. It comes down to you. If you have a taller opponent or they're coming higher into your face, you're going to have to lift it higher. Again, I've had debate about, it's not structurally strong, etc., etc. I think if you understand how to control your muscle groups, Bong Sao is structurally strong. So for example, make a fist. I can put Bong Sao forward here, okay, and you push, and as long as I can control the length of my triceps, my hand can be very powerful. You can probably don't even see it on my Bong Sao, it's very, very relaxed here, but I'm controlling the angle of the elbow purely through the leg, not allowing my triceps to elongate. My triceps don't elongate, my arm doesn't collapse. You put more force into it, and it can be very powerful. Whether I'm doing it this height, or whether I'm doing it this height, becomes irrelevant. Bong Sao for me is a reaction. Okay? So if I'm here, and if Alan pulls my arm down to punch me in the head, and the only reason why he would pull down is to punch me in the head, I need something that's going to bridge, and I need something that's going to lift. And the only way I'm going to do it is by stepping and lifting, so I can then come underneath or apply a defensive structure and hopefully a counter-attack immediately. I can't have my Bong Sao too low because it won't work. So I have to lift it, I have to step in, I have to support it with the legs, that's where all my power comes from, so the same again. So as you pull, I have to lift and step in. And whether I'm doing that in Chi Sao, whether I'm doing fighting, whether it's me trying to pacify somebody down and they grab my wrist, if they're pulling down, I want to be stepping and covering. So Bong Sao to me is a reaction. When something comes in fast, it's a response. It's not something I need to think about, it's more like an automatic flinch factor. So I don't think of it as a block. I think of it as a response to a scenario that allows me to buy myself a few milliseconds so I can react more appropriately. So if something comes in, it's an instinct, so I can then come out and play. So as it comes in, there's my instinct, and then I can come out and play. It's just a reaction, it's just a simple turn out of the way, best block in the world, don't be here, get out of the way, find the technique. I don't need to block the technique because I've already repositioned my body out of the way by stepping or turning. I find what's going on, I drive with two hands, and this thing would still be travelling, obviously. As it's travelling, I pass the level of responsibility across onto a much stronger structure, allowing me to come out and have a conversation physically. So that's Bong Sao. Bong Sao needs, from here or here, it needs to lift as it travels. Its job is to put the forearm in the way. So it rises and it covers. This hand still needs to be body cover low. Not lifting up high, because then you just expose more targetry, but just driving forward here. The Wu Sao takes over where the Bong Sao fails. So if you want to go to Bong Sao for me. So for me, Bong Sao's here. What it needs to do is it needs to come from here, it needs to be lifted at the elbow, not pushed with the forearm, not pushed with the wrist, otherwise the arm straightens, and it cuts in. And it cuts in at an angle to deflect. Obviously he's doing it without turning just to show the structure. So about here, the hand needs to be soft. When force is applied here, as somebody's punch makes contact, whether you're turning or not, action reaction are an equal opposite. The more force that's applied, and there will be a lot, the two objects collide. When the two objects collide, the force has to go somewhere. If that's tense, all it will do, it will knock a disengagement. If it's relaxed, then what you'll find is the force dissipates down the hand. allowing it to stick a little bit more, and the more it sticks, the more you know where it is. The better your information, the better your next decisions can be. Without information, you're guessing. With information, you're responding appropriately. So we want to try and stick. And again, as I said, it's all about control of the triceps. When we talk about Chun Sao, we talked about it not collapsing here and here because we control our triceps. When we talk about Bong Sao, it's exactly the same muscle structure, it's exactly the same control of the joint here, and we're covering here. As Bong Sao can, as we said, equally work low. It's one of these techniques that covers all the heights, all the varieties. What you never do is straighten out the arm, because it's that control of the joint which is key. So within Chun Sao, Bong Sao should rise and go forward. In Chun Kuen, it should rise and go forward, etc., etc. It shouldn't change. If it collapses, and it starts to collapse, that's where the structure of UG will take over. Bong Sao is a very simple tool. It's a reactive tool. I've seen it used. I remember watching during the riots in Hong Kong when there were people queuing to get a British passport or British ID card before the takeover. I remember watching some news footage. I remember two guys, the crowd kicked off, and this one somebody threw a punch, and this guy just reacted like this. It was a beautiful use of Bong Sao, and he probably never trained martial arts in his entire life. It's an instinctive reaction. It's not a block. It's a make a point of contact and then work with it. And whether you do it within Dan Chi Sao, whether you do it in Chi Sao, whether you do it in combat, whether you do it in drilling, whether you do it on the Muk Yang Jong, same thing applies. The path comes this way. What it doesn't want to do is scoop over, because when that punch comes, there's a good chance it's going to miss. It certainly doesn't want to lift and drive this thing up into your face. It should come in on an angle, always use with a positioning out of the way, whether it's turning, whether it's stepping, however you move. A, it's got to be natural, and B, it's got to give you the structure to be able to then do something with it. It cannot be tense. If it's tense, your muscles are locked. If your muscles are locked, they can't change shape. If they can't change shape, you can't react quickly. So, Bong Sao, a very simple tool, simple criteria that I would always apply when practicing it and sharing it, is that when you're not turning, as in Chun Sao or basic drilling in front of a mirror, your wrist is in front of your personal centre line. I would have, definitely you need your elbow higher than your wrist, because that's the bit of body cover it's affording you. So the flatter it is, the less body cover it gives, and let's face it, the force is coming in this way. So I want to give as much body cover as I mechanically can. The argument of whether the elbow should be higher than the shoulder, equal to the shoulder, or relaxed, that's something that actually comes down to personal use. I try and teach it so the elbow is slightly higher than the shoulder, and the reason for that is because of this bone. This bone is not telescopic. It can't absorb force. Any force applied on the end of the shoulder, onto the elbow, sorry, is going to be transmitted straight into the shoulder. If it's higher or lower, it's going to have the ability to absorb a little bit of force. And structurally, it's going to be using the bicep, the tricep, and the deltoid to actually resist that force. Here, I push. It's very difficult to absorb that force because it attacks the skeleton and it can't be absorbed by the muscle structure. So I tend to have it slightly higher or slightly lower for the same reason. That's not to say you can't have it parallel, but you just need to be aware of the pros and cons of doing so. The hand needs to be relaxed. The hand plays no part in it. If you have no hand, you can still do Bong Sao beautifully. It makes no difference. And it's all about the control here. When you apply it, you will always turn, or you'll step. You will angle your body. When you turn, you'll notice at the moment, Alan is directly in front of me because he hasn't turned. When he turns, his body repositions, but what you'll find is that Bong Sao doesn't go with it. If I'm here, and I put a Bong Sao forward to here, if I turn, and I did that, and my opponent was here, I've just presented a weakness that's going to get trapped. So from Bong Sao to here, I would still apply Bong Sao forward. Do not put Bong Sao when you turn in front of your nose, because that's not how it will work. What will happen is, if you're here, and I'm aiming here, and you turn, or you shift, and you move out of the way, the punch is now passing down here. Putting a Bong Sao in front of your nose, there we go, and turning it, when you're here, you'll now find this is more in front of the shoulder. It's certainly not ever going to be in front of the nose. So in Chun Kuen, application, anything like that, Bong Sao, when you turn, the Bong Sao doesn't turn, the body re-angles. Okay? And that to me is Bong Sao.